Hey, what's going on, guys? It's time for a new chapter of Hunter x Hunter, and this time we're going to be talking about chapter 408. And this one's quite the bombshell. There's quite a lot of new information, and I think things are going to really kick off here. So, man, really exciting stuff. But with that, let's get started. Now, if you remember from the last chapter, we're starting off with the negotiation game. So Morena's acting as the parent, Borkson is acting as the child, and they're going to play things out. And based on the results of the game, we're going to find out whether or not Borkson has to join the Haley group. We're also going to find out some interesting information about Morena in this game, and boy, is it interesting. I mean, my God. Like I said, it's bombshells, guys. But anyway, Borkson starts off with a purpose card, and is surprised that Morena is, chatting so casually. And she even asks her, she's like, well, can I ask questions throughout the game? Can we just kind of chit chat here and there? And Morena's like, yeah, I'm okay with that. Now, because they're chit-chatting, Borkson decides to ask Yoko Tani and the unnamed girl how many members are part of the Haley group. But Morena says that they won't answer that question. They're not allowed to talk throughout the game. So like I said, the two agree to answer each other's questions as long as it's a fair exchange. So if Morena asks a question, then Borkson can ask a question. And these are kind of just like nonchalant questions. They're not going to be pivotal to the game itself, but they're probably going to reveal some pretty interesting information. Now, based on the questioning and based on how Morena reacted to her question to the others, Borkson determines that there's probably maybe around 25-ish members to the Haley group. Now, with the purpose card, Morena has to explain basically what her purpose is, and she's pretty blatant in saying she wants to destroy the Kakin Empire, and from there, the rest of the world. Now, I mean, this is a fairly decent answer, but Borkson is not entirely satisfied. She's like, well, that only explains about 3% of your purpose. Like, I need a little more details than that. That doesn't really explain much to me. So it's at this point that Morena mentions Nisan Mano, royalty who cannot inherit the throne. Now, it turns out that the true Morena is actually in her grave right now. Well, the true Morena is in the girl who's posing as Morena's grave. So the person that we know as Morena is not actually Morena. So pretty interesting stuff there. She then mentions the Carnival and Blasphemy. Now, this is pretty interesting. It's basically known as the Festival of Orphans. Now, things are going to get pretty dark here, guys. I mean, this is Hunter x Hunter after all, but geez, it kind of feels like Berserk at this point. It's like, Jesus, the stuff that they talk about and the stuff that's implied is pretty nutso. But anyway, Kakin holds a festival every couple of years where they go into a random village and divide up the people into two groups, those who serve and the others. And then anyone who disrespects the royal family is punished by death. So basically, they're slaves. They go into some random village. They have their way with the villagers. If the villagers say anything or do anything that disrespects the Kakin royal family, they end up dying because of it. Now, it turns out the girl that we know as Morena, I'm just going to call her Morena for the rest of the video because we don't actually know her true name at this point. So, I mean, just for simplicity's sake, I'm just going to call her Morena. But Morena's mother actually hosted the royal entourage for several days without any sleep or rest. And because of this, she ended up passing away. And, Morena, she was only 2 at the time. And it turns out that her mother was so exhausted and so sleep deprived, she didn't even know she was pregnant or gave birth to her own child, which is pretty insane. Now, the quote-unquote Festival of Orphans, anyone that was born from this, from this Kakin debauchery, basically what it sounds like is that the Kakin royals would go into some random village and would just sexually have their way with all these women and basically would have a bunch of children that they would then henceforth mark on their face. So the mark that Morena has is not a mark of being a bastard child of Natsubi technically. It could be a bastard child of someone else. Who the heck knows? She might be the bastard child of Benjamin for all we know. Now, after their faces were slashed, they were immediately sent to a facility. Now, in this facility, that's where the human trafficking would occur. So it was managed by the Haley group, which seems to be the reason why Morena wanted to get revenge on them, because, she was being brutalized by these people for, it sounds like, all of her life. Now, when they were in the facility, they were either categorized into Nissan Mano or meat, and Morena was classified as meat. Now, the way that they imply it is that it sounds like Morena was being sexually abused for 20 years of her life, which is, I talked about it in the last chapter, guys, that I felt like this game was going to be a means for Morena to sort of expose herself to Borkson so that Borkson would commiserate with her, that she would empathize with her and be like, wow, maybe Morena is right. Maybe Kakin's got it all backwards. Maybe they're in the wrong, and Morena's actually the one with the, the right idea here. I mean, you feel bad for Morena, you sympathize with her, but at the same time, the way she wants to go about things by just destroying the entire world, starting with the Kakin Empire, probably not the best plan in the world, but you can definitely understand where she's coming from. I mean, you would definitely feel very vengeful and vindictive after everything that's happened to you in your life. I mean, she was born in 1998, and we're thinking it's like 2022 right now, so yeah, I mean, you could definitely feel for her. I mean, she's not justified in her actions, but she definitely has a very good reason. Let's put it at that. So anyway, like I said, Morena was quote-unquote meat for about 20 years, and then she eventually discovered a talent that she had within herself. She discovered that she had Nen abilities. And with this Nen ability, she devised a plan in which she wanted to take down the Kakin Empire. And, ever since 1998, so the Kakin Royals, they do this every, couple of years. It seems like it's kind of random. So her batch was 1998. Since then, there's been 7 batches of these festivals that have happened. Now, what's kind of interesting is that, like, a couple years ago, Kakin declared that they were a democracy. So it seemed like, they were coming to the light of the world. They were joining the rest of the world. They were going to be normal. But just that year afterwards, they had another one of their festivals. So it was kind of a democracy in name only. It kind of reminds me of like North Korea in a way, because isn't North Korea called the Democratic Republic of North Korea? But yeah, we all know that North Korea is not democratic, and it's not fair in any regard. Anyone who lives in North Korea is basically a slave to their dictator. So I mean, it sounds very similar in that way. I wonder if Togashi is sort of drawing inspiration from that. It sort of seems that way, at least. Now, Morena has selected each individual of the Haley family for a specific purpose for her plan. It's all sort of devised in a way so that they can effectively take down the Kakin Empire and then thereafter take down the world. Yet at the same time, she still needs one critical piece, that being Borkson. Or, as we're going to find out, she needs a specialist. It doesn't necessarily have to be Borkson. Now, with the game continuing, Borkson flips over the Joker card. Now, that's a yes or a no, so in that case, it doesn't really matter, so that goes to the graveyard. Borkson then chooses the Power card. Now, that's the card in which Morena explains her Nen ability. So she kind of explains Nen in general, nothing that we don't already know about. And then for her specific Nen ability, she's the parent, and she has 22 quote-unquote children, in which she can bestow Nen abilities, and they attain those Nen abilities with a point system. The point system that we're aware of, the contagion. Now, Borkson talks a little bit about her past here. It's an internal monologue, and we find out that, like I said earlier, it's kind of like a North Korea situation. Very strict rules. If you talk out against the country, if you talk out against Kakin, if you do anything disrespectful, it basically results in death. So, very strict rules, and you could tell that she's totally not in favor of that. She understands that Kakin is definitely not the best country to live in. It's a dictatorship, and it definitely has its flaws. But at the end of the day, she still feels like Morena's plan is, kind of out there. She's like, yeah, it's probably not the best way to go about things. And even with Beyond doing all his stuff and Morena sort of throwing chaos into the mixture, Borkson has resigned herself to basically say that she wants to avoid all the chaos. So she's going to try to find a means of just getting out of this and not having to deal with it. And that was kind of her plan in the beginning as well. When she found out that Morena knew Nen, she told her subordinates, like, hey, we're just going to avoid Morena at all costs. We'll act like we're looking for Morena, but really at the end of the day, I don't want to see any of you guys die. So we're just going to preserve ourselves. We're going to find a way to make it through this. And, living in a country like that, that's kind of a reasonable solution. A lot of your decisions are going to result in death, so just finding a way to sort of skate by and avoid the chaos is sometimes the best answer. So, that's kind of what she's looking to do here as well. Now, Morena explains to Borkson that she's a specialist and that she used Dogman's special smell ability to find her out. She also explains that specialists are especially rare. Apparently, I don't know if Togashi has mentioned this in the past, but about 1 in every 3,000 people is a specialist. So you got a boat of 200,000 people on the Black Whale. So Morena speculates that maybe there's about 50 or 60 people that are specialists on the boat. Now, when she was explaining the game in the last chapter, she said, it would be detrimental to you the longer this game goes on. The reason she was saying that is because she's not specifically relying on Borkson to be her specialist. She could use any specialist at this point. She doesn't really care. Borkson's just kind of the first one that they found. So the longer the game goes on, the higher the probability that Dogman finds another specialist, brings them in, and maybe they're a better candidate for the Haley family, So Borkson kind of needs to get out of this, or at least join the group quickly, because if she waits too long and they bring in another specialist, they might be like, okay, we don't really need you at this point, we're just going to kill you. And not only are they looking for a specialist, they're looking for someone who's going to commiserate with their cause, someone who's going to be fully on board with destroying the Kaken Empire and destroying the world. And if Borkson's not that person, if Borkson's got reservations, they're probably just going to offer. They're just going to be like, well, we'll just find a different specialist. Now, it's kind of funny because Dogman, while he was looking for other specialists, actually came across Crollo. And Morena knows that he's a floor master. Now, yeah, Crollo, come on. The guy's the leader of the spiders. He's got a wealth of experience. that's not going to work out too well. I would think that Dogman's probably going to realize that guy's a little bit too powerful to mess with. So we'll have to see how that plays out. Now, Morena explains Nen abilities, and she talks about how specialists are pretty much good at any other type of Nen, manipulation, enhancer, emitter. They could basically do it all. They have a very easy path toward learning every other type of Nen. That being said, if they don't realize they're a specialist type, they might accidentally specialize in the wrong type of Nen. They're so good at every other type of Nen that they might think they're an emitter or an enhancer or, a conjurer. So that's pretty interesting stuff. She also explains that she's a specialist. So she's combining the 5 other types of Nen abilities to make her contagion ability, which is pretty remarkable stuff there. So going on with the game, the yes card is flipped over next, which means that only the no and the X remain. We also got the return from graveyard card, but again, that's just going to bring back one of those cards. Morena then says that if Borkson doesn't join the group, that since she knows all their secrets, they're going to have to kill her. So here's the thing, the no and the X card remain. The no is a declaration that, no, I do not want to join the Haley group. And because that's a declaration and because it's very forceful and direct, they're going to see that as, well, you're against us then, and because you know all our secrets, we got to get rid of you. The X is a non-response. It's almost as if the game never happened whatsoever. And in this scenario, Morena would actually comply with this. She would pretend as though the game never happened and be like, okay, we're going to go out of our way to avoid you in the future. We're not going to kill you. We're not going to hurt your family. this game never happened, and even though we want to destroy the Kakin Empire and the world, we will go out of our way to prevent killing you in the future. So basically, they're going to kill everyone, but they'll leave Borkson for last in a way. So I guess that's kind of beneficial, but yeah, I mean, that's how it is. So from the last chapter where it looked like everything was in Borkson's favor, it actually turns out that it's all in Morena's favor. The whole game is a trap. Even the no is a bad response. Yes, she joins the Haley family. No, she has to be killed. And then there's X, which is, a non-response. So the X is really her only option. So 1 out of 5 cards helps her out in this regard. So it's basically a 20% chance for her. So, Morena definitely set this up in her advantage. Now, that being said, the game is still very high risk. And the reason that it's set up that way is because with net abilities, they all have conditions and vows, and that's how they become stronger. You have to set certain restrictions for yourself, and that's basically a restriction of this game, is that you can't just force someone to join the Haley group. They have to accept it themselves. They have to say yes. They either say yes, they say no and die, or they just leave and the game never existed. So yeah, I mean, that's a condition of the game. And in addition to that, a condition for joining the Haley group is that you have to go through this game and you have to risk getting the no card and potentially dying. So it's a risk on both sides, with the potential benefit being that you get very strong net abilities. So, it makes a lot of sense in that regard. Now, before the game ends, the last 2 cards are the X and the return card. And the return card, she can return something from the graveyard to her hand, is that martial law is declared on the Black Whale boat. So I would imagine that Balsamilko, i.e. Halkenberg, has returned to room 1001 and tried his plan on Benjamin. Now, if martial law was declared, does that mean that Benjamin stopped him and declared martial law? Or does that mean Halkenberg killed him, possibly, or, maybe took over his body, and now he's in the body of Benjamin, and that he declared martial law as Benjamin? That would be pretty interesting stuff. But with the declaration of martial law, guys, everything is going to be thrown into chaos. Just like all the plans that have been thought out these last couple of chapters, the plan with, with Kacho wanting to take down Lazarus, plan with Krapka and his Nen class, Corolla wanting to steal the 3 Kakin treasures, Hisoka, all this stuff is going to start converging, and oh my god, it's going to be freaking incredible. We're probably going to see some pretty interesting battles manifesting. Well, at the very least, we would imagine that Balsamilko and Benjamin are probably going to be fighting each other in this next chapter. We're probably going to go back a little bit and see what happened there. But dang, very interesting stuff. And we have to see what's going to happen with Borkson. Like, is she going to decide with the return card? Is she going to decide to choose the yes? Is she going to join the Haley group? Or is she going to choose the X, pretend nothing happened? Or is she going to choose the no and just say, you know what? This whole succession contest, everything that's going on is just absolute craziness. I just don't want to be a part of it. Screw it. Just kill me. But yeah, this is absolutely crazy stuff. And it seems like the next chapter is really where things are going to kick off. I mean, we've been building and building and building. And man, now it's shit's finally hitting the fan here, guys, and man, I am so excited for it. I can't wait to see what happens next. But yeah, tell me what you guys saw of this chapter. It definitely seems like maybe with these orphans, and you know how they had that chapter with the spiders and how they were orphans, that I wonder if the Kakin Empire and these orphan children are somehow connected. Like, I wonder if Krollo and the spiders were potentially orphans of the Kakin Empire and somehow they escaped. Who knows? But really interesting stuff, guys. Tell me what you guys thought, and I'll see you on the next one.